Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode I'll be analysing the first of a series of gameplays featuring the Tier 10 American heavy cruiser known as the Des Moines. The purpose of these gameplays is to illustrate my preferred playstyle with the Des Moines in terms of both its advantages and disadvantages. I would advise not treating these gameplays as an overall review of the ship for two reasons. Firstly, I've not played anywhere near enough games for the Des Moines to be able to come to a final opinion on her compared to a competition, and secondly, the Des Moines is my first Tier 10 cruiser, meaning I have little experience in sailing cruisers at Tier 10 and therefore do not currently feel confident enough to compare her to a competition. With the forward covered, what exactly is my preferred playstyle? In summary, my playstyle with the Des Moines revolves around getting the most out of her high DPM, or damage per minute, as attributed to her 3x3 203mm artillery pieces. However, whilst this can be done at long range, I prefer to position my Des Moines aggressively, getting as close to the enemy fleet as possible, in order to be able to apply my damage per minute as accurately as possible, especially against smaller ship classes such as destroyers, and secondly utilise my ship's consumables, either surveillance radar and hydroacoustic search, to the benefit of both myself and my team. For reference, the ranges of these consumables are as follows: surveillance radar 9.9 km, hydroacoustic search, torpedo detection at 3.42 km and closing, and ship detection at 4.92 km and closing. To support my preferred playstyle, I am using the following build for my ship, starting with the upgrades reading from left to right: main battery mod 1, a standard choice for most ships, improving the durability of my ship's artillery pieces. Secondly, surveillance radar mod 1, increases the duration of the surveillance radar consumable by 20%, i.e. from the base 40 seconds to 48 seconds. When I push up, this will allow me to keep hidden enemy ships, which are hidden using superior concealment, smoke or land masses, spotted for longer, conferring information or potential damage output to my team. Then we've got AA Guns mod 2. This combines with the Tier 4 captain skill known as Advanced Firing Training, or AFT, to maximise the range of my medium and long distance AA auras to 7.2 km, with damage per second or DPS of 426. Whilst the lowest possible detectability by air for Des Moines is 7.8 km, I'm working on the assumption that my innate aggression will quickly bring the aircraft spotting me into AA range. I found this to work very well when enemy ships positioned on the opposite side of a large landmass to me are using catapult aircraft to try and keep me spotted, as I shall exhibit in the second gameplay later this week. We then have steering gears mod 2, which by bringing my rudder shift time down to 6.9 seconds, I can more quickly react to incoming fire or torpedoes by angling my ship appropriately, increasing my net survivability. We then have concealment system mod 1. By maximising the concealment of my ship through this upgrade and the Tier 4 Captain Skill Concealment Expert, or CE, I can get closer to the enemy fleet before I am spotted. For reference, the maximum concealment values of the Des Moines are as follows: detectability by sea, 10.6 km, detectability by sea when firing from smoke, 8.2 km, and detectability by air, 7.8 km. And finally, main battery mod 3. This reduces the reload of my main battery from 5.5 seconds to 4.8 seconds, raising my potential damage per minute even further. However, the downside of fitting this over Gunfire Control System mod 2 is that my main battery range remains constricted to 15.8 km, which is a key argument for taking this upgrade instead of main battery mod 3. The net result of this choice is that I am mandated to get close to the enemy and keep them in range for as long as possible to get the most out of my DPM. With respect to captain skills on my 16-point John Doe captain, at Tier 1 I am running Priority Target, which is a standard pick for cruisers as it informs you of both when you are being targeted and how many ships are targeting you, encouraging you to get ready to take evasive action. At Tier 2 I am running firstly Adrenaline Rush, which is another standard pick for cruisers. As you take damage, your reload rate improves across your main battery and your torpedo tubes if you have them available. In the case of the Des Moines, it will enhance our potential DPM even further. And later on I've gone to take Jack of all trades. A 5% drop in the reload time of consumables can make the difference between having a consumable ready or still on reload in a critical situation. Additionally, my aggressive style of play will require me to have my consumables ready for the next push as soon as possible, particularly the heal and also the hydroacoustic search. At Tier 3 we've taken Superintendent, as having an extra charge of each consumable will come in handy during a long duration match, especially the additional heal as my aggression will necessitate taking hits. And at Tier 4, we've taken both Concealment Expert, or CE. As stated with respect to the Concealment System mod 1 upgrade earlier, The closer I can get to the enemy fleet during a push before being spotted is only going to increase my chances of survival and subsequent success. And we've also got Advanced Firing Training, or AFT, because as stated with respect to the AA Guns Mod 2 upgrade earlier, by maximising the range of my Des Moines AA, I have the ability to push into aircraft which are spotting me and bring them down before I can take too much damage because of their spotting. In the future, I also intend to take the following two skills. At Tier 1, Expert Loader, which is the improved variant, with John Doe improving this skill to a 75% reduction in shell swap time. This will cause the shell swap time to only take 1.2 seconds, meaning I can quickly ensure I have the right shell type loaded for the given engagement. And at Tier 2, I intend to take the improved version of Expert Marksman. As a downside of taking the main battery mod 3 upgrade is that this causes the 180-degree turn time of my ship's main batteries to increase to 34.5 seconds. This can prove painful when having to contest a quick series of engagements across both sides of my ship, as will be highlighted in the second gameplay this week. The 1 degree per second improvement will serve to mitigate this issue somewhat. With my build outlined, let us get into our first gameplay, a domination match on the map Sleeping Giant. As we load into the match and look at the team sheets, the one thing that's on my mind right now is the fact there are 5 battleships aside, and this poses a threat in terms of our survivability, as the armour of the Des Moines is not too great. We have 27mm of bow and aft armour. This armour can be overmatched applying the 14.3 multiplier rule by guns of calibre 387mm or higher, or as an example, the enemy's North Carolina, the Tier 8 American battleship, with its 406mm calibre guns, will be able to overmatch this armour and cause considerable damage. And with the Citadel of the Des Moines riding all the way from the frontmost turret to the rearmost turret in a 50-50 position, whereby it's half above the waterline and half below it, with only 152mm of thickness, we can be citadeled quite easily and really start to be cut into our 50,600 health pool. So in return, if we're going to be aggressive, we need to do it early, we need to do it fast with our top speed of 33 knots, which is decent but not the best at our tier, and we need to pick a sensible position of aggression in order to make sure we can get there without trading too much of our health. And we've decided to go for the position in the grid squares Echo 7 to Echo 6, the idea being we're going to be between objectives Bravo and Charlie and pose a threat to both objectives for the enemy team, and we're going to be difficult to dislodge due to the ample cover provided there, shielding us from the incoming fire of the enemy battleships in particular. And as we make our way in, we're fortunate enough to have a Shimakaze who's been quite aggressive themselves into objective Charlie, meaning they're going to be getting the initial spot in against the enemy fleet because they're going to have the stronger concealment compared to the enemy's gearing, for example. As we make our way towards our favoured position, we'll see the enemy teams start to appear on this side of the map. And we note that looking at the distribution of our own team, we're getting a 50-50 split, with a good chunk of our team going towards Objective Alpha, and the rest splitting off towards Objective Charlie, while Chungmu in particular going towards Objective Bravo by the looks of things, and this is really going to help out in terms of intelligence early on. As we continue to make our way forward then, the spotting starts to come in. While Shimakaze taking Objective Charlie gradually, the enemy gearing is about to be spotted, and we get the opportunity to throw in one salvo towards the gearing over the landmass off to our port side. This will enable us to do some damage to the gearing and in return get spotted. Now I've wanted to be spotted at this point because I want to know what could potentially start shooting at me, as our Shimakaze's only really spotted the gearing so far, and very briefly one could argue the enemy Iowa. I'm targeted by 5 ships, priority targets telling me this at this point, and I can start to get ready to angle against the incoming fire. And I know very quick firing armour piercing coming my way of low calibre, that'll be the enemy Minotaur, which we'll need to factor in. Starting to take some hits, I've already lost over 10,000 HP, but I can heal a good chunk of this, and really it's been a worthy trade as I've made it into my preferred position as I'm respotted for a brief period of time and I activate my surveillance radar. This instantly tells my teammates that the enemy Shimakaze is in the southeastern side of Objective Bravo, and our Chungmu, if they want to, can go chasing after them now, as the only thing that's covering them is the Minotaur, but for a position that doesn't always provide effective coverage currently, looking at the minimap and the relative angles displayed. On top of that, I'm also keeping the enemy Iowa spotted at the moment, thanks to our surveillance radar's range of 9.9 kilometers, as stated earlier. And therefore, we can look in the top right corner of our screen and see that our spotting damage is increasing quite dramatically. And this is all damage being conferred from our position and our utilisation of our consumables in order to give our team the opportunity to shoot at the enemy ships. Here I'm trying to shoot over landmass to my port side, but I'm way too close, as whilst the overall shell arcs of Des Moines are quite high, they're not that high to start with, and we're just waiting for the time being, giving ourselves a little bit of time and space to evaluate what's going on and what we can start to do from this position. Whilst we've been aggressive, we always need to take a breather and understand what's the next play. And really for me, it's starting to put additional pressure on Objective Charlie, because it looks as though whilst Objective Bravo is in the enemy team's hands, the enemy team are not considering using Objective Bravo as a means of pushing, meaning that I can focus all my attention on Objective Charlie and the ships that are found there, such as the enemy Missouri, who's really pushing far forward, giving ample broadside to me. We've got a crossfire set up with our teammates up in the northern side of the map, in the northeastern corner, and we can go to town with our DPM on the broadside of the Missouri, and the numbers are just going to rack up here, making the most of our armour piercing, which can Citadel for 5,000 damage per shell. We won't be seeing any Citadels here, but we'll definitely be getting a lot of penetrations, and that's the Missouri pretty much out of the game with this next salvo landing. And the guns are quite accurate as well. Whilst we didn't go for any of the accuracy mods, we have at our maximum range of 15.8 kilometers, a maximum dispersion of 142 meters, which we cannot complain about. Now we open fire on the enemy's cruisers that are held far back into the southeastern corner, where we've got the broadsides off once again because they're set up in that crossfire situation. Now you'll note that I have my hydroacoustic search active at this point, and the reason for this is because I'm scared of the torpedo threat from the enemy gearing in particular, who may be deciding to toss torpedoes out of Objective Charlie, as it is being contested by them most likely, towards myself. At the same time, it also means that if the enemy Shimakaze decides to try and come up behind me, alternatively if the enemy Minotaur had decided to do so, or the North Carolina, coming up from Bravo, I would be spotting them off of my hydroacoustic search before it catches me by surprise. So I'm providing myself with a little bit of a safety net at this point, as I pick up a Citadel on the Zal on their broadside, and they're out the game thanks to our Iowa. Now I'm taking some return fire from the enemy gearing, but the fortunate thing about this is, remember our application of Jack of all trades as stated, we want to speed up the reload of our consumables? Well, we now have our surveillance radar ready and we can go to work on the gearing once again, as they're stuck behind a landmass and they're in a rock and a hard place. They've got me on their western side, and then they've got our Shimakaze up on their northeastern side, and they've got our battleships towards their north, meaning that whatever they do, they're going to take hits. We've already landed one salvo of armour piercing in against them, and now switching to high explosive, their life is very short-lived. They're out the game, and the enemy Shimakaze, which is heading away from Objective Charlie now, is briefly spotted on our surveillance radar, but seems to be going toe-to-toe with our Shimakaze as well, meaning that we can assist with our high explosive shells and do some considerable damage in return. Now note that as we go to longer and longer distances, the slow and high muzzle velocity arcs of the Des Moines guns, where the 823 meters per second on our high explosive shells or 762 meters per second on our armour piercing shells, does come into effect, and makes it quite difficult to hit targets that are small at longer ranges. Meanwhile, if we look towards battleships at these ranges, all the way out to 15.8 kilometers, it's a little bit easier to hit these targets, so long as we provide ample lead, and that's something you have to get used to based on all the preceding guns in the American heavy cruiser line, and this really culminates with the Des Moines. Now I'm giving up my position here, and what's important to note is when you take a position early on in the game, you can start to become concerned or over obsessed with holding that position for the whole game and not realise when you need to move on. And here I've realised that the gameplay has now moved away from Bravo and the holding point between Bravo and Charlie. It's now moved towards the final push for Charlie, so I'm moving forward here to support my teammates, get into a position whereby I can again use my DPM to help bring down the Iowa, the Republic and the St. Louis. The idea on top of this is that we take Objective Charlie for our team. If our Iowa cannot do it, I will do it myself, using the concealment and my position in order to hide myself in the enemy fleet. Even though the North Carolina's coming up from what would be our southwestern side here on the starboard of our ship, they're not going to see us until it's too late because we've got a landmass between us and them. And by taking this objective, we pretty much shut down the enemy's hopes of completing this game for their team, because we'll have all three objectives, and even if we start to lose ships, there's going to be a massive points advantage which they'll need to overcome. So playing in the objective here rather than worrying about just bringing down enemy ships, as the enemy Iowa now falls to our Missouri, and we can start to look towards the enemy Republic. I'm getting ready at this point to open fire and trade effectively. Angling my ship provides an angle whereby I can use all three turrets, and in return, as they start to angle towards us, at the moment we'll throw in a high explosive, try and set some fires for our 14% fire chance. But if they start to show broadside, which I get the feeling they're overturning to do so at this point, we can now start to cut into their overall lack of upper armour. As the Republic, if I remember correctly, actually has one of the weaker armour profiles for a battleship, or at least on the upper belt. And here you're seeing it with a 7,000 damage salvo there, and it's only going to continue to build. And remember what I said about Adrenaline Rush earlier, where we've only lost a little bit of health, but already our reload's down to approximately 4.4 seconds rather than 4.8. So I should say 4.5 seconds, and this means that we can just deal more and more damage as time goes on. And if they were to hit us and do considerable damage with a Citadel, it means that our reload would only get shorter, and our damage output would only become more furious, as the Republic is about to go down with our final armour piercing salvo. Now I could turn at this point and worry about the ships further down in the southeastern corner of the map, but really is there any need to, with the fact that our team's got all 3 objectives, pretty much all the ships are available on our team, the enemy team's completely collapsed, and there's no need to push anymore, just play defensively. So I'm getting ready for a defensive position if needs be, but the enemy team's going to quickly fall at this point, and the game's going to wrap up. Time for the post-game stats. So what was a comfortable victory for our team? We can see that our battle performance amounted to a total damage output of 99,757 HP. In coming onto the team scores, we can see that we topped our team in terms of base experience earned, picking up 1,903. Our role in this game was to make life difficult for the enemy team in contesting objectives Bravo and Charlie. With respect to Charlie, by taking our forward position in grid squares Echo 7 and Echo 6, we were able to set up crossfires into the objective as the enemy team made aggressive pushes into and beyond the objective towards our teammates up in the northeastern corner of the map. With regards to objective Bravo, using our consumables in order to act as a utility magnet for our team, we were able to make life difficult for the enemy team in the fact that they could not push into Bravo without the risk of being spotted by either our radar or our hydroacoustic search if they decide to try and flank through into objective Charlie, meaning that our team would know what was coming and we could react appropriately. Coming on to our detailed report, we have 2 key items to note here. The first in the team play category, the damage caused upon our spotting, 56,738 HP, or just over our own ship's health pool. So you could argue that through the application of our position and our consumables, particularly our surveillance radar in our initial push, we're able to afford our team the ability to eliminate at least 1 enemy ship. This is important in terms of reducing the enemy team's numbers and serves to re-emphasise what we've stated at the start of this video, that we're intending to use our consumables, the hydroacoustic search and the surveillance radar, as a means of helping our team to see what lies ahead in the enemy fleet and dispatch it accordingly. Secondly, coming on to time and distance, the battle duration, 8 minutes and 29 seconds. I've typically found in tier 10 games, these matches will go on towards the full 20 minutes, or at least let's say 15 minutes in length. So to have a game that ended after 8.5 minutes is quite a surprise for me, and if anything can be partially attributed to our early position in giving our team the ability to quickly whittle down the enemy fleet that made its way towards objectives Charlie and Bravo. And finally, coming on to credits and experience earned, we can see that after additions and deductions, we walked away with 194,699 silver credits and 24,184 commander experience. To conclude, hopefully today's gameplay has provided a clear-cut example of how an aggressive DPM-orientated build for the Des Moines can be applied to a given game in order to help the team achieve victory. In the example, we saw how we moved into a forward position as soon as possible in the game in order to mitigate the incoming damage and get ourselves set up to help our team achieve the contest over objectives Bravo and Charlie. Using our firepower to establish a crossfire alongside our teammates at objective Charlie, whilst at the same time using our utilities, our consumables, in order to be able to peek into objective Bravo and make sure it was not a viable avenue for the enemy team to push through. And in the end, particularly around objective Charlie, one could argue that it was our aggressive approach that helped our team to catch the enemy team sleeping. And so I've been TX141, and if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships videos on my channel. And if you're looking to get into World of Warships today, ladies and gentlemen, it's a free-to-play game and one that I thoroughly enjoy. Feel free to use the link in the description of this video to sign up. But as always, until next time, take care and fair seas.